Meher Baba says, what does love mean? We find volumes and volumes written. There are very few who have found love and who have it. Man cannot possess love by means of anything except the gift of the one who possesses that love. No sooner you are gifted with that love, there is no duality. You cannot bargain for love. No amount of penance, meditation, puja, etc. can give that gift of love. Once that gift comes from God, it burns up all wells of sanskaras. He alone knows the real meaning of love, who receives the gift of love from God. That lover who so receives it cannot express it to others. His mouth is stitched, and not even smoke comes out of it. No sooner is love visible, and others can sense that he is a lover of God. He is not the lover of God, really. I tell you with my authority, the gift of love knows no law. Mehrabad, 1955.
So I was thinking, why does God come? Why do we have an avatar? Why do we have these advents, ad infinitum? And I just recently came across a very interesting way that Baba responded to that question at one occasion. And he said, well, you know how these police dogs are? That if you want to find the culprit, you take these dogs and you have them sniff or something from the thief or the culprit. And then once they get that sniff, then they can go after the culprit and, find the culprit just sniffing their way. And he said that, I come so that I can provide that sniff for you. So you can smell me, you can see me, you can know what God is like. And so then you will come after me. Now that you know what I am, how I am. And so that, Baba was a master in simplifying, complicated things. And so this is one of the occasions that he did so. And, he comes because he wants creation to continue. He's told us that he has come not to destroy illusion, not to destroy creation, but to awaken us. But why? Why does he want creation to continue? Well, because of his love. And so the question comes, if he loves us, then why does he make us suffer so much? Well, our understanding of love is that you make other people happy and take their suffering away. And here he's giving us so much suffering. Well, maybe the reason is that he wants us to experience love the way he experiences love, so that we know what love really is. You see, we are now all goal-oriented. We want to do a certain thing if there's something in it for us. So we want to go after God because we think it's good, something happiness, something good about it. We kind of, not deep in our being, but on the surface of our mind, that's what most of us, tend to think, that there's something great, something exalted, lofty, wonderful about going after God. We have a goal. But over time, he wants us to become love-oriented. And that is the pattern that he set during his new life. As you know, he told his companions, look, there's nothing in it for you. There is no goal. There's nothing spiritual. There's nothing material, nothing. And he didn't even bring up the topic of love. He just said, I just want to know who wants to die for nothing. These are almost his exact words. Basically, he said, I want you to come for nothing. So, and some people actually said, okay, we'll come with you. Why? Because they were prompted by something very deep inside of them that prompted them to want to do something for no reason at all, just to do it. And that is one of the true dimensions of love. But then how to love? How can we tell others how to love? Let alone, we don't know how to love ourselves. And yet we sometimes think that we can tell other people how to love or how to love Baba. But even Baba, we know there was this occasion when someone was loitering around. Baba was there and other people were there and this young man was there. And finally Baba called him in, says, what's on your mind? And he said, Baba, teach me how to love you. And Baba said, what? I can't teach you how to love me. You have to learn to love me on your own. It's not, nochokishmish in my pocket that I can get some trail mix from my pocket and give it to you. This is what Farshid told us, that Esfandiar told him, that, in an early occasion when they were in Meherabad, Farshid felt that, well, here is Esfandiar with, some achievements in the spiritual world, and he asked him for something spiritual to be given, and that's what Esfandiar says, that it's not, a trail mix. It's not nuts and raisins and so forth that I have in my pocket that I have to give you. So, and Baba, it's a personal relationship, in other words, that he guides us and helps develop in us. And as Myrna's read, there's nothing we can do about it. We can't learn it by doing pujas or whatever. It's a gift from God. And that's another reason Baba comes. The avatar comes to give us that gift of love. And all of us, our Friday night, we could be doing anything. But many people on many occasions are drawn to get together with other Baba lovers and talk about Baba. So that's the gift that he has given us, that he has inspired us, awakened in us this drive to want to learn more about him, more about love, more about God. And he teaches this to us through his personal example. Literally, someone reminded me of this incident with Bauji I think it was around 2008 or so, that a movie came out called Passion of the Christ. Some of you may have seen it. I haven't seen it, because what I heard was that it was so difficult to watch because it portrayed the crucifixion and the suffering of Christ so vividly and so graphically that I thought I would not be able to watch that. So I didn't watch it. But then they asked Bao. Bao went to see it, and he loved it. It was a movie made by Mel Gibson, if you remember. And Bao loved it because he said that portrays a little bit of the suffering that I saw Baba go through, especially during the last days of his life. And of course, if we listen to these videos that are available, if you read his life, even kind of a few years that he spent in New Life and all the suffering that he underwent, we see what an example he has left for us as selfless love, of how to love. So, and, he said that he has taken on himself the suffering of the world. And of course, the Christians, and especially the Catholics, have that view that the Christ was crucified to take upon himself the suffering of the world, because there is a law in creation, and it can't be, if there is suffering to be done, somebody has to do it. And so Baba did that suffering and made it easy for us. So if you say, why does he make us suffer? Well, he has reduced it to the extent he could without jeopardizing what we have to learn from our lives and from our sufferings. This story comes to mind of Jal, Baba's brother, who, in the early days, to convince him, Baba of his state, Baba put a hot coal, a red hot coal, in Jal's hand. Many of you know this story. And Baba said, well, if I put this in your hand and you don't burn, you don't feel the burn, will you believe in me? Something like that. I don't remember the details. And so Jal said yes. And so Baba put this in his hand and he didn't burn at all. But then the flesh was wounded, and so he had to go to the hospital and they have to bandage it and do everything, but he didn't feel the pain at all. But then they noticed that Baba's skin had a boil on it. And so Baba had transferred that to himself. So somebody had to take on that suffering. And that is why the avatar comes, to lessen the burden, at least one of the reasons he comes. So now we come to what we discussed last time. And I said that we're going to first touch on the different areas that we will expand on later. So this is just a quick review of the areas, and then we will expand on it. The first thing we talked about was the triple advent that Baba kind of came at the convergence of three avataric advents. One was the seventh avatar of a cycle. Each cycle, Baba talked about how there are 7 avatars. And so that was one aspect of his avatarhood. He comes as a preserver and to push creation forward. He integrates the work of the previous 6 avatars and blends them together and adds his own color, his own flavor, the new energy that he brings. So that was the first one, the 7th avatar. The next one we talked about was the Kalki avatar. That is less known about, but in India, many people talked about Baba as the Kalki avatar, as the white horse avatar, who comes at the end of a very long cycle of time. Now, the cycle of time that is associated with Kalki avatar is the 4 cycles of that end with the Kali Yuga. It's the golden age, the silver age, the bronze age, and then the iron age, which is the Kali Yuga. And the Kalki avatar comes to end this vast cycle of time by appearing at the end of the Kali Yuga, which is the most difficult. And as you know, Baba said, this has been the worst Kali Yuga in creation, because there have been many cycles and cycles and cycles and many Kali Yugas in those cycles of cycles. And so Baba is ending that cycle of cycles. And so this Kali Yuga is ending all of the previous cycles of cycles. And as a result, it is the worst. And it is usually associated with a cataclysmic event. And in Baba's advent as the Kali Yuga, that relates to the Second World War, that he said it was his war, that more died in it than in all the previous wars, all put together. The suffering, the destruction, the changes that came about after the Second World War are mind-boggling. And then, so that was a second aspect of this 3 converging avataric manifestations. The last one, we can call it the highest of the high, or the ancient one, because it hadn't happened before. And he talked about it in his message, The Highest of the High, after he finished his work with the New Life and all the other stuff that needed to happen. He proclaimed himself as the avatar, and he proclaimed himself as the highest of the high. And it is also the ancient one, because the ancient one is the first who went on the spiritual path during the first creation, the first world, and achieved realization. And so it is the same one who is now, he came and he went on the new life to prepare the pathway, the spiritual path for the second creation, for this new world that he is bringing about. And this aspect overshadows all the colors and all the associated qualities of the other 2 as the 7th avatar and the Kalki avatar, and brings about a totally new orientation of life and turns things, as Baba said, right side up. And of course, we will talk at length about all of these, the 7th avatar, the Kalki avatar, and the highest of the high aspects. But first, let's talk a little bit about who the avatar is. And last time we said that he is basically the sum total of the 5 perfect masters that run the universe at every time in creation. At any time in creation, there are 5 perfect masters who run creation. And the avatar is the sum total. Each of these perfect masters is God personified. And Baba himself said that, and I'm quoting, these 5 are God realized like the avatar. All are one. But in short, in the avataric period, the avatar is equal to the 5 Sadgurus. Thus, 5 Sadgurus make one avatar. That is the long and short of it. End of quote. So that statement alone makes one dizzy thinking about the splendor and glory and the power of the avatar, let alone these other aspects that I mentioned. So, again, touching on a few things that set beloved Baba differently from his previous advents. He, as you know, worked with all forms in his creation. He worked with animals and birds and plants and minerals, and he spent time in caves and even had the Panchvati cave created for him. He had a crypt dug out for him to work inside the earth. And so he worked with all pieces of his creation, for all the arcs of creation, unlike any of the previous avatars who seem to be focused primarily on the human aspect. And the reason for that is because Baba is bringing a major change in human consciousness. And human consciousness includes all the previous forms from mineral to vegetable to animal are in the human consciousness. What human consciousness does, as we said, is that human consciousness gives sensate awareness to the experiences of a stone, a carrot, a palm tree, a giraffe. We kind of integrate these sensations and give it sensate awareness to all of the forms that have existed. So in a way, we, by doing so, help other forms in creation to progress, but then to help our consciousness that includes all of these other elements of creation in it. Baba worked individually with each of these realms of creation. It's just like an athlete, spends time on each muscle, exercising each muscle. And the kind of idea behind it is that his whole body will be integrated by having exercised each one, then the whole will be better performing. And in this way, Baba worked with each of the different components of our consciousness because he's bringing about a massive change in our consciousness. Now, another big difference is that he came as the Awakener. So, just a little background. Baba was very sympathetic about the pits of ignorance that we are all in, because he knew that divine force first has to be kind of congealed into narrow, limited, frozen forms, limited, with limited view, with limited focus, so it can learn. It has to have a very strong ego, very strong, narrowly focused structure. And these later on become pits of ignorance. But these initially are of great boon because that's the only way we can learn. And so these limited, narrow egos frozen in these narrow forms must be created, must be there so that we can learn through them. And then once things have been learned, it's like a fruit that has become ripe. Then it lets go of the tree. It kind of falls away. These frozen forms melt and fall away. Now, in the previous avataric periods, the avatar's job was to help congeal and help these frozen forms. This is good, this is bad, do this, don't do that. And it was a lot focused on that sort of thing. Meditate, say prayers, all that sort of a thing. But now he has come as the awakener. There are no more laws. The only law is love. Why? Because the only thing that melts those frozen structures is love. And so with Baba, the first word and the last word is love. Love, 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 love. Because that is what is the new dispensation, the new creation, the new direction, to dissolve all of those forms. You see, in the past, the avatar, of course, sets the tenor of that period of time. And so all the saints and all the holy ones and all the perfect masters follow whatever pattern that avatar brings. And so in his previous advents, Baba had brought this kind of focus on the structure, focus on what we have started to learn is called winding of sanskaras, to learn to get energy into the different congealed forms of knowing in these sanskaric forms. So all the saints also worked towards that, helped the avatar in that. And in those periods, it was appropriate to, help whenever it could be helped. Someone who was diseased, someone who had financial problems, you go to a saint and they can help, adjust that for you. Why? Because they could take it from this lifetime and put it in another lifetime, or adjust things in a way that in a winding process, you wouldn't lose that kernel of learning, but for that time, it would give you some respite. And so even now, many of the saints are still, in that, working in that fashion. And so Baba, in his highest of the high message, said, if you want, to get cured, go to saints and to, sadhus and to walis. They can do that for you. But don't come to me. Because he had really come to free us from those things. And the only way to free us is to strengthen us so we can live through them and process them. Because all of that learning is now providing the energy to boost us towards divinity. And all of those congealed forms, when melted by love, provide the energy to boost us forward. And that is the unwinding that we have talked about. And so he said very clearly that he had not come to bring anything, any precepts, any kind of formal doctrine or teaching. He said, I repeat, I lay down no precepts. When I release the tide of truth which I have come to give, men's daily lives will be the living precept. Because now we live it, you see. We have to live it. It is no longer a artificial taking away from life and going meditating in a cave. The same sanskaras that we create, that we collected during winding, have to be unwound in a natural way in our lives and offered back to where they came from, offered back to divinity. And the words I have not spoken will come to life in them. is silence will be broken through our lives itself, which is going to be in the world, living for others, in service, in recognition of the oneness of creation. And so he said, if you have a choice, awake now in this life. Sometimes there is no choice because one is winding. Then one has to go with that. But if you have a choice, awake now. And when you awake and you process the ego of that lifetime, then that opens the way for the other lifetimes that you've had to come to be unwound. So I know that we covered more than what I've just said in the last week, but I'm going to stop here and we will pick up next time. But if there are any questions, please, or anything you want me to elaborate on, or I know that I sometimes speak very cryptically, so there might be some clarifications needed.
Elizabeth has her hand up. Jay Baba, Elizabeth.
Jay Baba.
Hey, Bob, I'm sorry, I have questions, but they just come to me. So I guess I had not understood about congealed forms. And I mean, I don't remember that from last time. But you said that when they're melted by love, they provide the energy to help us process and give us the strength to go through what we need to go through so that our sanskaras can unwind, so that we can give something back to God. I'm not sure what we're giving, so
whatever we got. Yeah. Okay. So, Baba said sanskaras are congealed might. You may be familiar with that phraseology of it. That he said, sanskaras are congealed might. And so any experience that we have becomes an impression. And the impression is in Sanskrit called sanskaras. And these sanskaras congeal on these sanskaric fibers. They create a pattern, they create a blending of energy, a kind of a bundle of energy. And so we gain all kinds of experiences, and the key is balancing them. So we have all kinds of opposites in our being, all the opposite of experiences, as congealed sanskaras or congealed energy on these sanskaric fibers. These are all bundles like atom bombs that are ready to go off when they come together. So what brings them together is love. And so when these sanskaric accumulations, these congealed bundles of force are brought together, our subjective experience is also love. And it is often accompanied by tears. We cry for no good reason. We come in front of Baba's picture. Why? It's because some sanskaras are being brought together and melting. And you see, what do they create when there is an atom bomb that breaks through the boundaries that you see these sanskaric fibers are all tied down, and then they need to be freed so that they can go and connect to higher levels of divinity. And so this energy explodes them and makes them, and some people go imbalanced, when that happens. in the past, it used to be more often, but Baba has brought some balance to it. So people would go, some months, for example, stay that way for lifetimes. And some people go God mad, or they just lose their balance. And so we have to be patient with ourselves and with others when they go through such experiences. And it could be they do totally crazy things. They become very aggressive and violent towards us. They begin to shout at us and, criticize us and yada, yada, yada. And so, it's hard at the moment to remember all of these things, and we react. I'm talking about myself. We want to retort right away and say, no, you're in the wrong. But if we keep in mind that the person is maybe going through such a period, makes it easier to keep one's composure. So it is these bundles of sanskaras. So what I was saying is that we don't own these sanskaras. They all belong to God. We don't exist even. So we're giving them back to God. We grab them to learn from them, to create this energy. And when it is time for them to come together and combust, then they're free to go back to God. So that's what I was trying to communicate. Thank you for that question.
Yeah. Now, there was one word I didn't catch. As this the critical word, you said sanskaras are unsomething might.
They are solidified might.
Solidified.
Yeah. I think if you search for that in Lord Meher, you may even find it there. I know it's in some of the discourses. I don't remember exactly where. Oh, maybe it's in the sanskaras, the discourses on sanskaras. You may also find it that if you want to see exactly what Baba said. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.